Chosen one, why are you still fighting battles that ended years ago? Why does your soul feel like it's circling the same mountain over and over and over again? And why, tell me, why does everyone else seem to be moving forward while you're stuck in some cosmic waiting room, watching your dreams collect dust? Listen to me, chosen one. And yes, I'm talking directly to you, the one who clicked on this because something in your spirit whispered, "This is for me." Something is circling your life, chosen one, and you don't even see it. But it's been waiting to confront you since the day you were born. You think it's just another rough season. You think you're just getting older, slower, forgotten. But what if I told you that what looks like stagnation is actually a divine setup? What if your confusion isn't chaos, it's choreography? The galaxy doesn't rotate randomly, neither does your pain. Right now, this very second, God's been spinning something around your name, a revolution, a reset, a confrontation with destiny itself. While you've been wondering, what's wrong with me? Heaven's been asking, are they ready yet? You've felt it, haven't you? That restless stirring, that spiritual itch you can't scratch, that knowing that something is about to shift, but you can't put your finger on what. Before we go deeper, I want to thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and let the Spirit move through you. But right now, if your spirit is vibrating with recognition, if something deep in your bones is saying, "This is my word," comment 99. Just the number 99. Don't think about it. Let your fingers move before your mind can interfere. Because here's what's about to blow your mind. What if the shift isn't just happening around you, but because of you? What if you're not the victim of the storm, but the eye of it? Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will change everything you thought you knew about why your life has felt like a broken compass pointing toward a destination you can't see. This isn't coincidence. This is confrontation. And it's time. Why does your pillow know more secrets than your closest friend? Why do you wake up at 3 a.m. feeling like something's hunting you, but you can't see what? And why, listen to this carefully, why does every door you try to open feel like it's being held shut from the other side? You've been telling yourself it's just stress, just getting older, just life being life. But what if I told you that what you're feeling isn't random at all? What if every sleepless night, every closed door, every moment you felt spiritually suffocated has been part of something far more intentional than you ever imagined? The winds didn't just start blowing. They've been circling since your betrayal, since the day you almost gave up. Let me paint you a picture that's going to make your soul tremble with recognition. You know that feeling when you're standing outside just before a tornado hits? The air gets thick, heavy, everything goes eerily quiet. The birds stop singing, even the leaves stop rustling. That's not peace you're feeling, that's the eye of the storm. And chosen one, you've been living in that eye for months, maybe years. You thought it was just a rough season. You told yourself, "This too shall pass." You quoted psalms and sang hymns and kept your chin up while your world felt like it was spinning off its axis. But what you called a rough season was actually a divine stirring. What you mistook for silence was God positioning you at the center of something so massive, so earth-shaking, that he had to quiet everything else around you first. The prophet Elijah knew this feeling. Remember when he ran from Jezebel, hid in that cave, convinced he was the only one left? God didn't speak to him in the earthquake, didn't speak in the fire, didn't even speak in the mighty wind. He spoke in the still, small voice that came after the storm. But here's what most people miss. Elijah had to weather the storm first to hear the whisper. You've been weathering your storm, and you didn't even know it. Think about Job for a moment. The man lost everything, his children, his wealth, his health. His wife told him to curse God and die. His friends accused him of secret sins. But here's the kicker. God never told Job what was happening behind the scenes. Job never knew about the conversation between God and Satan. He never knew he was the centerpiece of a cosmic confrontation between good and evil. Just like you don't know what's been happening behind the scenes of your life. You see, Satan doesn't waste ammunition on nobodies. He doesn't set up elaborate schemes for people who don't matter. The fact that you've been under this kind of pressure, the kind that makes you question everything, doubt yourself, wonder if God even sees you, that's not proof you're forgotten. That's proof you're feared. The invisible storm around you isn't random weather patterns, dear one. It's strategic, it's targeted, and it's been building intensity because something in you has been building power. Every time you chose to pray instead of panic, the wind picked up. Every time you chose to trust instead of quit, the pressure increased. Every time you chose to worship in the wilderness, to praise in the pain, to believe when your eyes saw nothing but barrenness, you were unknowingly charging the spiritual atmosphere around you. Your faithfulness in the dark has been creating electromagnetic shifts in the heavenly realm that the enemy can feel. He knows something's coming. He can sense the rumbling beneath the surface of your seemingly ordinary life. That's why the attacks got more personal. That's why the isolation felt more intense. That's why even your prayers felt like they were bouncing off the ceiling. It wasn't because God stopped listening, it was because the enemy was trying to create so much static that you couldn't hear God's response. But here's what the devil didn't count on. Here's what he miscalculated in all his scheming and plotting and spiritual terrorism against your peace of mind. Your silence wasn't stillness, it was setup. Every moment you thought God was absent, he was actually positioning pieces on a chessboard you can't see. Every delay you experienced was him moving his hand to protect you from walking into something prematurely. Every door that slammed shut was him redirecting you away from a counterfeit blessing toward the real thing. You thought you were just surviving, but survival in the eye of a storm isn't passive, it's preparation. Your spirit has been developing muscles you didn't know you had. Your faith has been pressure tested at depths most believers never experience. Your discernment has been sharpened by having to navigate through confusion that would have broken weaker souls. The storm hasn't been trying to destroy you. It's been trying to discover what's really inside you. And what it discovered terrified the gates of hell. Because what's inside you isn't fear. What's inside you isn't defeat. What's inside you is the same spirit that raised Christ from the dead. And that spirit has been stirring, awakening, preparing to manifest in ways that are going to shock you and everyone who knows your story. The invisible storm is about to become very, very visible, and when it does, everyone's going to understand why the wind has been circling your life with such intensity. If you feel it in your bones, say, "I hear the wind," in the comments. Because what's coming next is going to explain why the storm had to be invisible first, and why your awakening to it changes everything about what happens next. How many birthdays have you celebrated feeling like you're running out of time? How many nights have you laid awake thinking I should have done this 20 years ago? And how many mornings have you woken up convinced that your moment has already passed you by? Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. The clock on your wall is a liar. The calendar on your phone is a deceiver. And that voice in your head whispering, "It's too late," that's not wisdom, that's warfare. You think it's too late. You think you're too old. But God's timeline just lapped the calendar. Right now, as I'm speaking to you, there's a divine reset happening in the spiritual realm. While you've been counting years, God's been counting moments. While you've been measuring time in birthdays and anniversaries, heaven's been measuring time in purposes and promises. The world runs on Chronos, tick-tock time, deadline time, age limit time, but heaven operates on Kairos, God's perfect timing, appointed moments, divine intersections. And right now, you're not late for your Kairos moment, you're right on time. Moses was 80 when God called him to lead Israel out of Egypt. 80. Can you imagine? While his peers were settling into retirement, Moses was just getting started. Abraham was 75 when God told him to leave everything and follow a promise he couldn't see. Sarah was 90 when she gave birth to the child of promise. But here's what'll blow your mind: they weren't exceptions to God's timeline. They were God's timeline. You've been looking at your life through the wrong lens. You've been using the world's measuring stick when God's been writing your story with a completely different pen. Every delay you thought was a denial. Every closed door you thought was rejection. Every no you thought was God forgetting about you. What if, and stay with me here, what if every single setback was actually a setup? What if every detour was God laying track for a train you couldn't see coming? What if your greatest disappointments were heaven's way of saving you from settling for less than your assignment? Right now, there are dreams inside you that you've buried under birthdays. There are callings you've silenced because society told you there's an expiration date on purpose. There are prayers you've stopped praying because you convinced yourself you missed the window. But God doesn't operate by your timeline. He operates by His Word. And His Word says in Isaiah 46:10, I make known the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. God knew exactly when you'd be reading this message. He knew exactly when your awakening would happen. He knew exactly when your season would shift. You didn't miss anything. You were being prepared for everything. Look at your hands right now. Go ahead, look at them. Those aren't old hands. Those are experienced hands. Those aren't wrinkled fingers. Those are wisdom-worn tools that have learned things younger hands haven't touched yet. Every line tells a story. Every scar carries testimony. Every age spot is a badge of survival. The enemy wants you to see age. God sees advantage. The enemy wants you to see decline. God sees design. The enemy wants you to see endings. God sees new beginnings that younger souls aren't ready to handle. You know what your problem is. You've been comparing your timeline to other people's highlight reels. You've been measuring your behind the scenes against their front page victories. But you don't know their whole story. You don't know what they had to lose to get what you see. You don't know what they had to sacrifice to arrive where they are. But God knows your story. Every chapter, every plot twist, every seemingly wasted year was actually character development. Every season of silence was actually spiritual education. Every moment you thought you were falling behind, you were actually being built up for what's ahead. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, Psalm 37:23. Not just the successes, the steps, the ordinary Tuesday morning steps, the nothing's happening Thursday afternoon steps, the I'm too old for this Saturday evening steps. Every single step has been ordered, orchestrated, aligned. Here's what's happening right now in the spiritual realm. There's an acceleration taking place, divine acceleration. While the world operates on linear time, God operates on exponential time. What should take you 10 years, He can do in 10 months. What should take 10 months, He can do in 10 weeks. What should take 10 weeks, He can do in 10 days. Sarah had a baby at 90 after waiting decades. Noah built an ark and saved humanity at 600 years old. Caleb conquered his mountain at 85 and said, "Give me this mountain, not I'm too old for mountains." You didn't miss the bus. God was building the tracks under your feet. And right now, this very moment, those tracks are complete. The train is coming, and you're not a passenger. You're the conductor. Every tear you cried in the waiting room, every prayer you whispered in the darkness, every time you almost gave up but didn't. It was all preparation. It was all curriculum. It was all building something inside you that wouldn't have been there if you'd gotten what you wanted when you wanted it. Your delay wasn't denial. It was development. Your detour wasn't disaster. It was destiny preparation. Your timing isn't off. Your timing is ordained. Right now, there are doors opening that have your name on them. Right now, there are opportunities aligning that require exactly the experience you've gained and the wisdom you've earned. Right now, there are people praying for someone with your specific combination of pain and purpose, struggle and strength, age and anointing. You're not too old. You're perfectly positioned. You're not too late. You're right on heaven's schedule. You're not behind. You're being built for something bigger than what you thought you wanted 20 years ago. If this is resonating in your spirit right now, if something is stirring in your soul, I need you to comment. I'm not behind. I'm being built. Let faith declare it. Let your fingers type what your heart is beginning to believe. Because here's what I'm going to reveal next. And you need to stay until the end for this prophetic word. God didn't just rewrite your timeline, He rewrote your assignment. And what He's about to release through you is going to shock everyone who thought you were finished. The question isn't whether you have time left. The question is, are you ready for what He's been preparing you for while everyone else thought you were just getting older? Because, chosen one, your greatest chapter isn't behind you. It's being written right now. How many times have you looked back at your life and wondered how you missed something so obvious? How many red flags did you ignore because you were too busy putting out fires that weren't even real emergencies? And how many divine appointments did you walk right past because your mind was somewhere else entirely? You didn't miss the signs were disguised. Listen to me, chosen one. What I'm about to expose will shake you to your core because you're going to recognize yourself in every single word. The enemy of your soul has been playing a game so sophisticated, so calculated, that you've been living in spiritual blindness while thinking you could see perfectly fine. You've been asking God, why didn't you warn me? Why didn't you show me? But He did. He's been screaming your name through every circumstance, every coincidence, every moment when your spirit felt restless. The problem wasn't His voice. The problem was the noise. You scroll to forget. You stay busy to avoid the scream in your chest. You fill every quiet moment with television, with phone calls, with anything that drowns out the sound of your own soul crying out for something more. Because silence terrifies you. Stillness exposes you. And in that exposure, you might have to face the truth you've been running from for decades. The Bible tells us in Ephesians 6:12, we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. But here's what most people miss. The greatest principality isn't some demon with horns. It's distraction disguised as productivity. It's chaos masquerading as purpose. You've been so busy managing crisis after crisis that you never stopped to ask the most important question: who's creating these crises? Everything looked fine, but something was off and you knew it. Deep in your gut, you felt it. That nagging sensation that your life was a movie playing on mute. You were going through the motions, checking the boxes, smiling at the right times, but inside you were screaming. You told yourself it was just stress. Just getting older, just life being life. But your spirit knew better. Your spirit was trying to get your attention the only way it knew how, through that holy dissatisfaction that wouldn't let you rest. Remember when you used to lie awake at 3 a.m., staring at the ceiling, feeling like something was calling your name but you couldn't quite hear it? That wasn't insomnia, that was invitation. God was trying to pull you aside for a conversation. But your days were so packed with noise that the only time He could get through was when the world finally went quiet. The enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. He doesn't need to make you hate God. He just needs to make you too busy to hear Him. He doesn't need to steal your calling. He just needs to bury it under an avalanche of urgent things that don't matter. Think about it. How many hours have you spent scrolling through other people's highlight reels while your own dreams collected dust? How many hours worrying about problems that never even happened? How many hours rehashing conversations from 20 years ago instead of having the conversation God's been trying to have with you today? Jesus said in Matthew 13:22, "The worries of this life and the deceitfulness of wealth choke the word, making it unfruitful." But let me tell you what that looks like in real life. It looks like you checking your phone instead of checking your spirit. It looks like you being more concerned about your credit score than your spiritual score. It looks like you knowing more about what's happening in Hollywood than what's happening in heaven. You've been living in a spiritual fog so thick you couldn't see 6 inches in front of your face, but it wasn't natural fog. It was manufactured, strategically deployed, precisely targeted. The real warfare wasn't outside you. It was the war for your focus. While you were fighting battles in your marriage, your finances, your health, the real battle was happening in your mind. The enemy was winning by keeping you reactive instead of responsive, keeping you in survival mode instead of revival mode, keeping you so focused on the urgent that you completely missed the eternal. Every time God tried to get your attention, something urgent would pop up. Every time you felt that tug toward your true purpose, a crisis would explode that demanded your immediate attention. Every time you started to pray, to seek, to listen, the phone would ring with another emergency that absolutely couldn't wait. But here's the truth that's going to set you free. Most of those emergencies were artificial. Most of those crises were choreographed. Not by people, but by powers that understood one simple principle. A distracted saint is a defeated saint. You know what I'm talking about, don't you? That feeling like you've been running on a treadmill for years, exhausting yourself but getting nowhere. That sense that you're always one step behind, always catching up, always putting out fires instead of building something that matters. The prophet Habakkuk said, "Write the vision and make it plain." But when was the last time you had enough mental space to even think about vision? When was the last time you sat in silence long enough to hear what God was trying to download into your spirit? You've been so busy surviving that you forgot you were called to thrive. So busy reacting that you forgot you were created to create. So busy managing everyone else's expectations that you lost sight of God's expectations for your life. But the fog is lifting now. The veil is being pulled back. And what you're about to see is going to make you understand why the enemy worked so hard to keep you distracted. Because what's been revolving around your life isn't small. It's massive. It's generational. It's the kind of calling that changes bloodlines and reshapes destinies. The signs weren't hidden. They were camouflaged. God's been orchestrating circumstances, aligning people, opening doors, but you were looking in the wrong direction. You were focused on the problems instead of the patterns, focused on the noise instead of the notes, focused on the chaos instead of the choreography. And now, right now, in this very moment, the camouflage is dissolving, the fog is clearing, the noise is being silenced. And for the first time in years, maybe decades, you're beginning to see what's really been happening in your life. Type, "Wake up" if you felt God trying to shake you silently, because what I'm about to show you next will prove that everything you thought was falling apart was actually falling into place. Every detour was actually divine direction. Every delay was actually divine preparation for something so significant that your current understanding of your own life is about to be completely rewritten. The job, the marriage, the friendships, they're unraveling. But don't panic. It's permission. I know you're sitting there watching everything you built with your own two hands crumble like a house of cards in a windstorm. The career you sacrificed decades for, gone. The marriage you fought to save, dissolving. The friends who promised they'd always be there. Silent phones and empty chairs at your dinner table. And you're asking God, why now? Why, after all these years of being faithful, of showing up, of doing everything right, why is everything falling apart? Listen to me, chosen one. What if I told you it's not falling apart? What if it's falling away? There's a difference, and that difference will either destroy you or deliver you. You see, God has been watching you carry dead weight for years, decades maybe. You've been dragging corpses around, calling them relationships. You've been watering dead plants, calling it faithfulness. You've been feeding toxic situations your life force, calling it loyalty. But God's been waiting for you to let go, and since you wouldn't, He's cutting the ties Himself. God's cutting ties because you won't. Think about it. How many nights did you lie awake knowing that job was killing your spirit? How many times did you feel your soul shrinking in that marriage, but you stayed because you made a promise? How many friends drained your energy, took your generosity, and gave you nothing but drama in return? You kept dead things alive because you were afraid to bury them. But here's what the enemy never wanted you to understand. Sometimes the most merciful thing God can do is remove what's slowly poisoning you. Even when it hurts, even when it feels like abandonment, even when the whole world looks at your life and whispers, "What happened to them?" The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3-6, "A time to keep and a time to cast away." But we got so comfortable with keeping, we forgot how to cast away. We forgot that sometimes love means letting go, sometimes faithfulness means walking away, sometimes survival means stopping the fight. And God? God saw you drowning in obligations that weren't ordained. He saw you suffocating under expectations that weren't from heaven. He saw you becoming smaller and smaller, dimmer and dimmer, trying to fit into spaces that were never designed for your expansion. So he started the great unraveling. Not to punish you, to free you. You think you're losing everything, but what if you're actually being liberated from everything that was keeping you from your true calling? What if every door that's slamming shut is making room for the door he's getting ready to open? I'm talking to the woman who spent 30 years in a marriage where she felt invisible, and now she's terrified of being alone. But God whispers, you were already alone. Now you're free to find yourself again. I'm talking to the man who climbed the corporate ladder for 4 decades, only to be pushed off at the top. But God says, you were climbing the wrong mountain. Now you can see the peak I've been preparing for you. I'm talking to everyone who's watching their circle get smaller and smaller, wondering why people keep leaving. But maybe, just maybe, God is clearing the room because he's getting ready to fill it with the right people. The ones who will see your light instead of trying to dim it. The ones who will cheer for your breakthrough instead of being threatened by your growth. You're not being left behind. You're being lifted out. This is your divine extraction, your spiritual surgery. And yes, it hurts like nothing you've ever experienced. Because when God removes something from your life, he has to cut through the soul ties, the emotional attachments, the familiarity that kept you comfortable in your cage. But chosen one, comfort was killing you slowly. Routine was rotting your dreams from the inside out. Stability had become stagnancy, and God loves you too much to let you waste away in a life that's too small for the giant he created you to be. The children of Israel wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, not because God couldn't get them to the promised land faster, but because he had to get Egypt out of them before he could get them into their destiny. He had to let their old way of thinking die in the desert. He had to strip away their slave mentality before he could give them their inheritance. And right now, you're in your wilderness season. Everything familiar is falling away. Everything you thought you could count on is proving unreliable. Everything you built your identity on is being challenged. But this isn't punishment. This is preparation. God is getting Egypt out of you. He's dissolving the slave mentality that made you accept less than his best. He's breaking the generational patterns that had you settling for survival when he created you for significance. You've been afraid of losing what you have, but God's been afraid of you never receiving what he has. The job that just let you go, it was blocking the business he wants to birth through you. The relationship that just ended, it was preventing the love story he's been writing with your name on it. The friends who walked away, they were occupying space meant for your true tribe, your divine connections, your kingdom family. I know it doesn't feel like promotion when everything's falling apart. I know it doesn't look like favor when your life resembles a demolition site. But sometimes God has to tear down before he can build up. Sometimes he has to clear the land before he can plant the garden. And you, chosen one, you are fertile ground, rich soil, prime real estate in the kingdom of heaven. But you've been covered with buildings that weren't supposed to be there, relationships that were squatting on your property, dreams that were constructed on the wrong foundation. So God brought the wrecking ball, not to destroy you, but to uncover you, not to leave you empty, but to prepare you for the fullness that's coming. Every brick that falls is making room for something better. Every tie that breaks is freeing you for something stronger. Every door that closes is redirecting you toward the door that's about to open wide. But here's what you need to understand. You can't cling to the old while trying to receive the new. You can't hold on to what's ending while expecting what's beginning. You can't mourn the demolition while celebrating the construction. The Bible says in Isaiah 43:18-19, "Remember not the former things, nor consider the things of old. Behold, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs forth. Do you not perceive it?" God is doing a new thing. But your hands are still full of the old things. Your heart is still attached to what he's trying to remove. Your mind is still analyzing what he's trying to erase. Let it go. Let it fall. Let it unravel completely. Because on the other side of this great unraveling is your great becoming, On the other side of this falling apart is your coming together in ways you never imagined possible. You're not losing your life. You're losing the limitations that were disguised as your life. And the question that will determine everything about your future is this: will you fight the unraveling, or will you surrender to the liberation that's trying to birth itself through your willingness to let go? You've been looking at your life like you're some random planet floating in space, getting knocked around by cosmic debris. But what if I told you that's the greatest lie the enemy ever whispered in your ear? It's not about the stars. It's about what they orbit. You. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, there's a spiritual gravitational pull emanating from your very existence that's been reshaping everything around you. And you've been so busy looking up at the chaos that you missed the most shocking truth of all. You are the center. Think about our solar system for a moment. Mercury doesn't just randomly decide to circle around empty space. Venus doesn't waltz through the galaxy for kicks. Planets don't move unless something massive is at the center. Something with enough gravitational force to hold entire worlds in perfect orbit. That's you, dear one. That's what God placed inside your spirit when He breathed life into your lungs. But here's where it gets personal. Here's where it gets real. You thought the storm was random. You thought the attacks were coincidence. You thought the betrayals, the losses, the midnight tears, the financial struggles, the health scares were just bad luck hitting a good person. You thought the storm was random. It's revolving around your awakening. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on empty targets. Hell doesn't mobilize against nobodies. And let me tell you something that's going to rock your world. Every single attack you've survived, every door that slammed in your face, every person who walked away when you needed them most, it wasn't because you were worthless. It was because you were worth the war. Isaiah 54:17 says, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper." But notice it doesn't say no weapon will be formed. It says it won't prosper. Why? Because weapons are only formed against threats. Weapons are only built to stop something powerful. You want to know why your life has felt like a battlefield? Because there's something inside you that hell recognizes even when you don't. There's a calling so massive, a purpose so threatening to darkness, that the spiritual realm has been in full mobilization mode since the day you took your first breath. Think about this logically. If you were truly insignificant, if your existence truly didn't matter, would the enemy work this hard to confuse you? Would he invest this much energy in making you feel small, forgotten, worthless? The devil doesn't fight what he's not afraid of. Every sleepless night you've endured, every anxiety attack that came out of nowhere, every voice that whispered you're not enough that wasn't random mental illness. That was spiritual warfare against a weapon of mass construction that God embedded in your DNA. You are what they're trying to stop before you fully activate. But here's the beautiful irony that's about to set you free. While the enemy has been attacking you, trying to dim your light, trying to convince you that you're just another face in the crowd, God has been using every single attack as confirmation of your assignment. Romans 8:28 tells us, "All things work together for good for those who love God, who are called according to His purpose." Not some things, all things, even the attacks, even the betrayals, even the seasons when you felt like you were dying inside. God has been using your pain as proof of your purpose. Every time someone rejected you, dismissed you, overlooked you, God was actually protecting what He was building inside you. Because what's coming through you is so powerful, so anointed, so world-shifting, that it had to be incubated in hiddenness until you were strong enough to carry it. You've been wondering why you feel different, why you don't fit in, why small talk feels like torture and shallow relationships drain your soul, why you see things others miss and feel things others ignore. It's because you're operating from a different frequency. You're not meant to blend in with the crowd because you're the gravitational center that the crowd will eventually orbit around. But I need you to understand something that's going to change how you see every relationship, every opportunity, every door that's about to open in your life. People have been drawn to you your entire life, and you didn't even realize why. That coworker who always comes to you with their problems. That neighbor who somehow always ends up telling you their deepest secrets. That stranger in the grocery store who starts sharing their life story while you're just trying to buy milk. They weren't being random. They were being pulled by something they couldn't name. Your spirit carries a gravitational pull that draws broken people toward healing, lost people toward direction, and hopeless people toward faith. You thought you were just being friendly. God was positioning you as a spiritual magnetic field. Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." Set you apart for what? To be ordinary? To blend in? To live a quiet, unremarkable life? Number. You were set apart to be a center of influence, a gravitational force, a spiritual sun that other lives orbit around for warmth, light, and life. But here's what the enemy hoped you'd never figure out. Here's the revelation that's going to shift everything. The chaos around you isn't happening to you. It's happening because of you. Every time you've taken a step toward your purpose, the spiritual atmosphere around you has shifted. Every time you've prayed with real faith, declared truth over lies, chosen forgiveness over bitterness, the very fabric of reality has bent around your obedience. You think you're just one person making small decisions, but in the spirit realm, your choices create ripple effects that reach into dimensions you can't even see. When you worship in your living room at 2 a.m., angels are dispatched. When you choose to trust God in the middle of financial pressure, provision is released. When you speak life over your family instead of agreeing with fear, generational curses crack and fall. You are not just living your life. You are reshaping the spiritual climate around everyone connected to you. Your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, your co-workers, they're all benefiting from a spiritual gravitational field they don't even know exists. They're being protected, blessed, and positioned because God placed them in orbit around someone He's anointed to be a center of influence. But I have to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer it honestly in your heart. If you truly understood the magnitude of what God placed inside you, would you still be hiding? If you truly grasped that your voice carries the power to shift atmospheres, your prayers have the authority to move mountains, and your very presence creates a safe space for miracles, would you still be playing small? The enemy has worked overtime to convince you that you're just getting by, just surviving, just hoping to make it through another day. But what if survival was never the plan? What if you were designed to thrive, to lead, to be the answer to prayers you'll never hear? What if the reason your life has felt like a cosmic storm is because you're not meant to weather it, you're meant to command it? You know what's been eating at you for months, maybe years? That gnawing question that keeps you up at 3 a.m. God, where did everybody go? One day you looked around and realized the phone stopped ringing. The invitations dried up. Even family gatherings felt different. Like you were there, but not really there. Like you'd become invisible in your own life. And you've been telling yourself it's because you're getting older, because people are busy, because that's just how life goes. But deep in your gut, you know it's more than that, isn't it? It wasn't isolation, it was insulation. Listen to me, chosen one. What felt like rejection was actually divine protection. What looked like abandonment was actually appointment. God didn't let people drift away from you by accident. He orchestrated your solitude with surgical precision. You think He forgot about you. He was protecting what He was healing. Remember when Jesus withdrew to lonely places to pray? Luke 5:16 tells us, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Even the Son of God needed sacred isolation. Even Jesus needed to be pulled away from the crowds, from the noise, from well-meaning people who would have interrupted what the Father was doing in His heart. And if Jesus needed that, what makes you think you don't? But here's where it gets personal. Here's where it cuts deep. You didn't just get lonely by chance. You got lonely because God wrapped you in stillness like a womb, not a coffin. There's a massive difference between burial and birth, and what you've been experiencing isn't death, it's development. Think about it. A baby in the womb is completely isolated from the outside world. No outside voices, no distractions, no interference. Just the steady heartbeat of the mother and the perfect environment for growth. That baby isn't being punished. That baby is being prepared. And that's exactly what God did with you. He couldn't let anyone touch what he was healing. He couldn't let their opinions seep into your transformation. He couldn't let their doubt contaminate your destiny. So he wrapped you in divine stillness. And yes, it felt like a prison sometimes. Yes, it felt like punishment. But Psalm 139:13 says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb." God is still knitting. He's still creating. And sometimes the most beautiful work happens in the hidden places. You want to know why your closest friends stopped calling? Because they would have told you to get over it before God was finished with your breakthrough. You want to know why certain doors slammed shut? Because walking through them would have interrupted your healing process. God isolated you because isolation was the only environment where this level of transformation could take place. But here's what's been torturing you, and I'm going to say it out loud because somebody needs to. You thought you did something wrong. You thought you weren't good enough. You thought if you were more spiritual, more faithful, more something, people would have stayed. Stop right there. Your isolation wasn't a consequence of your failure. It was a consequence of your calling. 1 Kings 17:3-4 shows us how God told Elijah, "Leave here, turn eastward, and hide in the Kerith ravine. You will drink from the brook, and I have directed the ravens to supply you with food there." God literally commanded isolation. He directed the hiding. He orchestrated the separation. And notice this. God didn't send Elijah to hide because he was weak. He sent him to hide because he was powerful. Because what was coming next required a man who had been alone with God, not distracted by the crowds. That's your story too. The loneliness you've been carrying wasn't random. It was strategic. God needed you away from the noise so he could speak to you in whispers. He needed you away from the crowd so he could heal the parts of you that were too tender for public exposure. He couldn't let anyone touch what he was healing because human hands would have messed up divine surgery. You've been through trauma that took decades to surface. You've carried wounds that went so deep you didn't even know they were there until God started the healing process. And that kind of soul surgery, it can't happen in public. It can't happen while you're managing everyone else's expectations and opinions. So God cleared the room. Think about when Jesus healed Jairus' daughter in Mark 5:40. The Bible says, after he put them all out, he took the child's father and mother and the disciples who were with him and went in where the child was. He cleared the room of the mockers, the doubters, the people who would have interfered with the miracle. That's what he did for you. He cleared the room so he could resurrect what everyone else thought was dead. Your dreams, your hope, your ability to trust again, your capacity to love without fear. All of it was laid out on the operating table of divine isolation, and God has been performing surgery with the precision of perfect love. But here's what you need to understand about this season. It's almost over. The incubation period is coming to an end. The womb season is preparing for birth. And just like a woman in labor, the final moments before delivery are the most intense, the most uncomfortable, the most make you want to quit difficult. You're not still hidden because God forgot about you. You're still hidden because he's not finished with the masterpiece yet. Isaiah 49:2 says, "He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." Did you catch that? God hides what he's preparing to use. He conceals what he's about to release. You've been in the quiver, chosen one, not on the shelf, in the quiver. Being prepared for precision, being sharpened for impact, being aimed at a target you can't even see yet. And every day you spent feeling forgotten, God was actually preparing you for a moment when being remembered would change everything. The isolation taught you how to hear God's voice above all others. The loneliness developed your ability to stand alone when everyone else follows the crowd. The silence gave you depth that small talk could never touch. You didn't lose people during this season. You lost distractions. You didn't lose opportunities. You lost counterfeits. You didn't lose your social life. You lost the shallow connections that were keeping you from the deep ones God has prepared. And I know it hurt. I know there were nights when you cried yourself to sleep, wondering if anyone would ever truly see you again. I know there were moments when you questioned if you were even worth being seen. But Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart." God saw you before anyone else did, and He's been seeing you through this entire season of hiddenness. The God who hid you is the same God who's about to reveal you. And when He does, when this incubation period ends and you emerge from this divine womb, the world won't recognize you, because you won't be who you were when you went in. You'll be who you were meant to become. The loneliness shaped your character, the silence developed your wisdom, the isolation refined your purpose. And now, as this season draws to a close, you're about to understand why God had to clear everyone else out of the room. Because what He's about to do through you couldn't happen through the old you, and the old you had to die in the stillness before the new you could be born in power. But here's the question that's going to determine everything about your next chapter. Are you ready to trust that your greatest season of hiddenness is about to become your greatest season of visibility? You want to know why you've felt so exhausted? Why some mornings you wake up feeling like you've been wrestling all night, even though you went to bed peaceful? Why your dreams have been chaotic, your thoughts scattered, your peace under constant assault? While you slept in confusion, hell built a map with your name on it. Dear chosen one, what I'm about to tell you will shatter every assumption you've made about your struggles. You thought you were dealing with bad luck, poor timing, difficult people, but you've been in the crosshairs of a war you didn't even know was being fought. Listen to me carefully. The Bible doesn't mince words about this reality. Ephesians 6:12 declares, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." You've been wrestling all right, but your opponent was never visible. Think about it. How many times have you said, "Everything that could go wrong, went wrong"? How many times have perfect opportunities fallen apart at the last second? How many relationships turned toxic just when you were getting close to breakthrough? How many financial blessings got blocked by unexpected emergencies? That wasn't coincidence. That was coordination. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition on people who don't matter. He doesn't deploy strategic warfare against nobodies. The level of opposition you've faced, the systematic way everything seemed to go sideways right when you were about to step into your calling, that was proof of your assignment, not evidence of your failure. You survived targeted spiritual warfare and didn't even know you were under attack. Do you understand how remarkable that makes you? Do you grasp the level of divine protection that's been operating around your life? 1 Peter 5-8 warns us, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." But here's what most people miss. Lions don't hunt everything. They target the strongest, the most valuable, the ones that pose the greatest threat to their territory. You've been hunted because you're huntable. You've been targeted because you're a target worth taking down. Think about the battles you've fought in your mind. Those thoughts that came out of nowhere. You're not good enough. You're too old. You missed your chance. God forgot about you. Those weren't your thoughts. Those were missiles launched from hell's war room, aimed directly at your destiny. Remember Job? The devil had to ask God's permission before he could touch him. Why? Because Job was under divine protection. But notice this. Satan had been watching Job, studying him, building a strategy against him. Job 1-9-11 reveals the enemy's battle plan. "Doth Job fear God for naught? Hast not thou made an hedge about him? But put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face." The hedge. There's been a hedge around you too, but the enemy's been probing for weak spots, sending reconnaissance missions into your relationships, your finances, your health, your peace of mind. Every panic attack was a psychological operation. Every sleepless night was spiritual sabotage. Every time you felt like giving up was a victory celebration in hell's briefing room. But you're still here. You survived the depression that was designed to destroy you. You outlasted the anxiety that was engineered to disable you. You weathered the isolation that was crafted to make you quit. You endured the betrayals that were orchestrated to break your trust in God's goodness. Say, I survived blind if you know you didn't make it this far by luck. Because luck had nothing to do with it. You've been protected by forces you couldn't see, fighting battles you weren't aware of, winning wars you didn't even know you were in. The enemy's been studying your patterns. He knows when you're most vulnerable, usually between 2 and 4 a.m., when your defenses are down. He knows your triggers, those specific wounds that send you spiraling. He knows your weak spots, the places where shame and fear have taken root. But here's what he didn't count on. Your resilience was divine, not human. Every time he thought he had you cornered, something inside you refused to quit. Every time the circumstances screamed, surrender, something deeper whispered, survive. That wasn't your strength. That was God's strength operating through you, keeping you standing when everything in hell was designed to knock you down. Daniel faced the lion's den, but he also survived years of smaller attacks, jealous colleagues, political schemes, attempts to discredit his character. The lions were just the final exam. You've been taking the same test, one attack at a time. The spiritual attacks against you have been military-grade precision strikes. They've hit your confidence, your relationships, your resources, your reputation. They've come disguised as natural circumstances, bad timing, difficult people, unexpected setbacks. But when you step back and look at the pattern, it's unmistakable. You've been under siege, but sieges only work if the fortress falls, and you're still standing. The warfare intensified because your breakthrough was getting closer. The attacks multiplied because your assignment was about to activate. The enemy threw everything he had at you because he knew once you woke up to who you really are, his window of opportunity would slam shut. That window is closing right now. You're not a victim of spiritual warfare. You're a survivor of it. You're not damaged goods from hell's assault. You're battle-tested, enemy-proven, heaven-approved. Every scar is evidence of a battle you won. Every wound that healed is proof that you can't be destroyed. Every night you thought you wouldn't make it to morning is testimony that greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. The map they built with your name on it, it's useless now. Because you're no longer the person they were hunting. You're awake, you're aware. You're armed with the knowledge of who's really been fighting for you all along. But here's where it gets dangerous for the kingdom of darkness. When the hunted becomes the hunter, when the target becomes the weapon, when the victim realizes they're actually the victor. You've graduated from spiritual boot camp without even knowing you were enlisted. Now it's time to pick up your sword and join the fight consciously, intentionally, powerfully. Because the battle isn't over, it's just beginning. But this time, you know who the real enemy is. This time, you know what weapons you carry. This time, you know which side has already won. And that changes absolutely everything about what happens next. Listen to me very carefully, chosen one. While you've been sitting in the pews of your own life, waiting for God to send revival to your city, to your family, to your nation, you've missed the most staggering truth of all. You're not waiting for revival. You're the one it's waiting on. I need you to stop right there. Put down whatever you're holding. Look me in the eyes through this screen, because what I'm about to tell you is going to shatter every excuse you've been nursing, every reason you've given yourself to stay small, stay quiet, stay hidden. You think revival is some distant event, some tent meeting, some mass awakening that happens to people, but that's not biblical. That's not how God moves. That's not how he's ever moved. Look at Gideon, hiding in a winepress, trembling with fear. The angel doesn't say, wait for revival, Gideon. He says, the Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Not will be, is, present tense. The revival was already inside Gideon. He just didn't know it yet. Look at Esther. She thought she was just surviving the palace. But Mordecai had to shake her awake. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? The revival of an entire nation was waiting on one woman to stop thinking small and start thinking kingdom. Look at David, a shepherd boy with a slingshot. While grown men cowered, while armies froze in fear, revival walked onto that battlefield in the form of a teenager who knew his God. One stone, one shot, one moment of faith that changed the trajectory of a nation. And now look at you. You've been thinking you're the audience. You've been thinking you're the spectator. You've been praying, God, send revival, when God's been whispering back, I already did. I sent you. Do you understand what's happening right now? While you've been asking God when He's going to move, He's been moving through the very heartbreak that nearly destroyed you. While you've been wondering when your breakthrough is coming, you've been the breakthrough that others have been praying for. That pain you've carried, that wasn't punishment. That was preparation. That isolation you've endured, that wasn't rejection. That was consecration. Every tear you've cried in secret, every prayer you've whispered in the dark, every time you chose faith over fear, when nobody was watching, you were being forged into the very answer someone else desperately needs. The thing God's been preparing all this time is you. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where most chosen ones stumble. They hear this truth and they shrink back. They say, not me, God. I'm too broken. I'm too old. I'm too scared. Send someone else. Send someone stronger, younger, more qualified. Moses tried that excuse. I can't speak well, God. And God said, who made your mouth? Jeremiah tried it. I'm too young. God said, don't say you're too young. Sarah tried it. I'm too old. God laughed and gave her Isaac at 90. Your age is not your disqualification. Your past is not your disqualification. Your pain is not your disqualification. It's your certification. Every scar on your soul is a degree from the University of Divine Preparation. Every betrayal you survived is a PhD in discernment. Every loss you endured is a master class in resurrection power. You didn't go through hell to come out the same. You went through hell to come out equipped. But revival doesn't start with fanfare. It starts with one person saying yes when everyone else is saying number. It starts with one voice speaking truth when everyone else is whispering lies. It starts with one light refusing to hide under a bushel when everyone else is cursing the darkness. And that one person is you. Right now, in this moment, there are people praying for breakthrough who don't know that breakthrough has your name on it. There are families crying out for healing who don't know healing walks around in your skin. There are communities dying of spiritual thirst who don't know the well they need is sitting in your living room, watching this message. You think you're nobody special? Tell that to the woman at the well. One conversation with Jesus, and she became the evangelist to an entire city. You think you're too messed up? Tell that to the demoniac of Gadara. Jesus cast out his demons and sent him as a missionary to 10 cities. You think you're too ordinary? Tell that to the little boy with 5 loaves and 2 fish who fed 5,000 people. God doesn't choose the qualified, He qualifies the chosen, and you are chosen. But here's the part that's going to make you uncomfortable. Here's the part that separates the talkers from the walkers, the dreamers from the doers, the spectators from the revivalists. Revival requires risk. It requires you to stop playing it safe. It requires you to stop waiting for permission. It requires you to stop asking, what if I fail? And start asking, what if I don't try? Noah looked foolish building an ark when there wasn't a cloud in the sky. Abraham looked crazy, leaving everything he knew to follow God to a place he'd never seen. Mary looked scandalous, carrying a baby she couldn't explain. Revival always looks foolish to the world. It always looks risky to the flesh. It always looks impossible to the mind. That's how you know it's God. Because when God moves through you, when revival flows from your surrender, when breakthrough erupts from your obedience, there's no way anyone can take the credit. There's no way anyone can say, look what they did. They can only say, look what God did through them. And that's exactly how He likes it. The shift isn't just coming, it's revolving around you. Every prayer you've prayed has been creating momentum. Every tear you've shed has been watering seeds. Every step of faith you've taken has been building pressure. And now that pressure is about to explode into purpose. But you have to stop waiting. You have to stop preparing. You have to stop getting ready to get ready. The people who need what you carry can't wait another decade for you to feel confident. The families that need your breakthrough can't wait another year for you to feel worthy. The communities that need your light can't wait another month for you to feel ready. They need you now, broken and all, scared and all, imperfect and all. Because revival never comes through perfect people. It comes through surrendered people. It comes through available people. It comes through people who say, "Here am I, Lord. Send me," even when their voice is shaking. Moses stuttered his way into delivering a nation. David stumbled his way into kingship. Peter denied his way into apostleship. And you're going to heal your way into revival. Not despite your pain, because of your pain. Not despite your story, because of your story. Not despite your scars, because of your scars. The very thing you've been ashamed of is the very thing God wants to use. The very experience you've been hiding from is the very message someone needs to hear. The very weakness you've been covering up is the very strength someone needs to see. So what are you going to do with this revelation? Are you going to keep playing small while people die without hope? Are you going to keep hiding your light while the world stumbles in darkness? Are you going to keep waiting for someone else to be the revival when God is waiting for you to be the revival? The clock is ticking, the harvest is ready, the fields are white, and the laborers are few. But you're not few anymore. You're awakened, you're activated, you're appointed. The question isn't whether you're ready. The question is whether you're willing. Your eyes have been opened. Your soul has been stirred from its slumber. But awakening without action is just another form of sleep. Don't wait for another confirmation. You are the confirmation. For 72 years, maybe 80, perhaps even 90, you've been waiting for someone else to validate what God already stamped on your forehead before you took your first breath. You've been looking for signs while you are the sign. You've been praying for miracles while you are the miracle walking around in flesh and bone. How many more burning bushes do you need to see? How many more Red Seas need to part before you realize that Moses didn't wait for permission to stretch out his rod? He didn't conduct a survey. He didn't check with the committee. When God said now, Moses moved, and the waters obeyed. You think you're too old? Abraham was 99 when God promised him nations. You think you're too broken? David was hiding in caves when God called him king. You think you missed your season? Jesus didn't start his ministry until he was 30, and he changed the world in just 3 years. The enemy has been whispering the same lie to you for decades. It's too late. You missed it. You're done. But I'm here as a messenger from the throne room to tell you that hell is a liar, and time is an illusion when you're walking in divine purpose. Your next 72 hours are not just any 72 hours. They are sacred hours, prophetic hours, hours that have been circled on heaven's calendar since before the foundation of the world. In the next 3 days, God is going to move pieces on the chessboard of your life that have been stuck for years. But you must cooperate with the revolution that's already in motion. Here's what I need you to do, not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready, but right now. As I'm speaking these words into your spirit, something is shifting in the atmosphere around you. Can you feel it? That's not your imagination. That's not wishful thinking. That's the presence of the Lord moving through dimensions to meet you exactly where you are. Chosen one, we've journeyed together through some deep waters tonight. And if you're still here, if you've stayed until this very moment, that's not coincidence. That's confirmation. Your spirit knows what your mind is still processing. Let me remind you of the truths we've uncovered together. Something major is revolving around your life, even when you can't see it. Your pain wasn't random, it was preparation. Your isolation wasn't rejection, it was consecration. And that restless stirring in your soul, that's not confusion. That's God calling you into alignment with your destiny. You are not behind schedule. You are not too old. You are not too broken. You are right on time for what God has planned. The very experiences that tried to destroy you have been forging you into the answer someone else desperately needs. You are not the spectator of revival. You are the revival. But here's what I need you to understand as we close. You are not walking this path alone, never alone. Right now, as you're watching this, there are thousands of others just like you, feeling the same stirring, receiving the same call, awakening to the same truth. God didn't just speak to you tonight. He spoke to an army. And that army includes the person sitting next to you in that comment section, the viewer who clicked on this video at 2 a.m. because they couldn't sleep, the grandmother who's been praying for breakthrough for her family, the man who's been carrying pain for decades and finally feels hope again. We are a community. We are a family. We are connected by more than just this message. We're connected by the same spirit, the same calling, the same divine appointment with destiny. So before you leave this sacred space we've created together, I want you to do something. Look in the comments below. See those numbers? Those aren't just statistics. Those are real people, real hearts, real chosen ones, just like you. And they need to know they're not alone tonight. Share your story. Share your breakthrough. Share your pain if you need prayer. Share your victory if you need to encourage someone else. Use the comments as more than just interaction. Use them as connection, because somebody down there needs to hear exactly what you have to say. And if this message has moved something in your spirit, if it's awakened something that's been sleeping, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video. Send it to that friend who's been struggling. Post it for that family member who's lost hope, because you might be the chosen one they've been praying for without even knowing it. But before you go, let me ask you one final question. What if this moment right here, right now, is the hinge point your entire life has been building toward? What if everything changes from this day forward, not because of what happens to you, but because of what awakens in you? Take a moment. Let that settle in your spirit. And now, let me pray over you. Not just words, but a covering. Not just hope, but activation. If you're able, place your hand over your heart. Feel it beating. That's not just blood pumping, that's purpose pulsing. That's destiny drumming. That's God saying, I'm not finished with you yet. Father God, I stand in agreement with every person who has stayed faithful to this message. Right now, in the name of Jesus, I declare that confusion is breaking off their lives. I declare that the season of wondering what's wrong with me is over, and the season of what's right with me has begun. Lord, for the one who feels too old, you are making them young again in spirit. For the one who feels too broken, you are revealing that their cracks are where your light shines through. For the one who feels too afraid, you are replacing fear with fierce faith. God, I pray that as they wake up tomorrow morning, something will be different. Not just in their circumstances, but in their countenance. Not just in their situation, but in their spirit. Let them look in the mirror and see what you see, a chosen vessel, a prepared warrior, a carrier of your glory. Break every chain of delay, Lord. Shatter every lie of the enemy that has convinced them they've missed their moment. Open doors that no man can shut. Bring connections that no devil can block. Release resources that no recession can touch. And Father, surround them with your people. Connect them with this community. Let them know they are not walking alone. They are not fighting alone. They are not believing alone. We are with them. You are with them. And that is more than enough. In Jesus' mighty name, let the revolution begin. Not around them, but through them. Not for them, but by them. Use them, Lord. The world is waiting. Eternity is watching. And we believe their time is now. Amen. Chosen one, thank you for trusting me with your time tonight. Thank you for opening your heart to this word. Thank you for believing that God still speaks, still moves, still chooses people just like you for such a time as this. If this message has changed something in you, would you do me a favor? Hit that subscribe button. Not for me, but for the others who need to find this community. Your subscription helps more chosen ones find their way home to their calling. And remember, the revolution isn't just coming, it's revolving around you. Go change the world, one surrendered step at a time. God bless you, chosen one. Your time is now.